Hello, welcome back. I am Andy, and we are talking here about early modern philosophy. I'm a philosophy lecturer, and we are talking about Leibniz. Last time, I told you briefly, a summary of Leibniz's philosophy, what he wants, what the monads are doing, how everything is predetermined. And we ended at this point where we were talking about God and God's justice, what is called the Theodicy. And the question here is, if everything is pre-programmed, how can there even be evil in the world? Would God not stop this evil? And this is a problem for everyone who believes that at the same time God is all good and all powerful, but also there is evil in the world. And if God is all good and all powerful, why does he allow this evil to be in the world? And so every Christian must have an answer to this question. Otherwise, you could suspect of God either not being powerful enough to stop it, then this would not be good for, our idea of God, or God is not good, he likes evil to exist, which is also not what we want. So we have to somehow explain how this comes about, that in a world that is designed by all good and all powerful God, we still have evil. And this is the problem of theodicy. And so now Leibniz has an answer to this. And first he says we must distinguish different types of evil. So not all evils are the same. When we think of evil, perhaps we think of diseases, cancer, or we think of wars and people getting bombed and perhaps children dying in a war. These are all grave evils. But we can also try to be a little more distinguishing in this respect. And we can distinguish three different kinds of evil. We can distinguish what is called metaphysical evil, physical evil, and also moral evil. So what does this mean? What is metaphysical evil? The metaphysical evil is the evil that is necessary because we live in a finite world. A finite world does not have infinite resources, for example. So let's, think of a small island, and you have some indigenous tribe living on this small island, and they cannot leave the island, and the island has only a limited amount of resources. Now, you cannot stuff an unlimited amount of people into this limited island because it just cannot work. Necessarily, due to the fact that the island is limited, you get evil, you get hunger, because people need more resources and there are no more resources, and some of the people will die. But this is necessary because the island is limited. Not even God could create a limited island with unlimited resources that houses an unlimited population. Where would the population go? Even if they had unlimited bananas, right? Where would they sit? So the space is just limited. And therefore, necessarily, there is this metaphysical evil, which comes from the fact that the world is limited and our power is limited. And so we will always encounter situations in which something, from our perspective, bad happens because we collide with these limitations of the limited world. Physical evil now is again an evil that is necessary in a physical world because of the limitations of a physical world. For example, we need to die. If we didn't die, we would just flood the place with humans, which we have already done, but it would be even worse, right, if you had all these ancient humans still hanging around. So we need to die. But then if you need to die, then necessarily, death becomes something bad because, I experience death as the end of of myself. But at the same time, it is necessary for this world to exist. The world could not exist in the same way if I was to live forever. So in a way, I need to see that my physical death is necessary for the good of the world, so that another person can, be born and take my place. And this is necessary again for the renewal of the world. We need people with new ideas. You don't want all these old guys hanging around and managing everything. And so physically, it is necessary that we have this. Or take pain, right? Pain is useful. Pain is a signal that tells us that something is wrong with our body. We need to avoid to do something because it causes us pain and it's dangerous for us. We need to repair perhaps some damage to our body when we have pain. We need to go to the doctor. If I never had pain, my body would very quickly deteriorate because I wouldn't feel what is happening to it. We have real examples of this from people who are addicted to, let's say, painkillers or heroin or something, and they have wounds on their bodies, they have, bad teeth, that they just, because of their drug addiction, they just don't realize that they have these problems, and this is very dangerous for them. So it is important that we have pain, but now pain is an evil. But it's a physically necessary evil. If pain did not exist, we would not actually have a better life. Our life would be worse. Pain is necessary in order for us to have a good life. So to some extent, imperfection and suffering are necessary, and also in the way of contrast. In order to enjoy the sunshine, you need to have rain. And if you only had sunshine, like in the, let's say, Sahara Desert, where you have mostly sunshine, people are not very fond of sunshine. They're trying to hide away from it. We only really appreciate sunshine because we have these periods of rain. So that's very important to our psychology. Again, this is something that is necessary in a way in order to create a good world. So in order to have an appreciation of the goodness of your world, you need to have these bad parts within it. And finally, the moral evil is necessary because of human freedom. To all Christians, it is important that we are free. God made us free, and He made us free after we ate from this fruit, right, of the knowledge of good and evil. And the point is that now we know about good and evil. We are not anymore puppets, like we were in the Garden Eden before. After we ate this forbidden fruit, we have acquired this knowledge. And now we are free to decide. And the freedom of this decision is what makes us fully human subjects of God, right? We have the freedom to follow God's commands, or we have the freedom to ignore them, to separate ourselves from God, to act against God's commands. And therefore we have the freedom to be good or bad, right? Where for the Christian worldview, good means following God's commands, and bad means, ignoring them or acting against them. And this is very essential to Christian morality, is this freedom. We need to be able to decide freely. If somebody does not decide freely, they cannot be responsible for their actions, right? If we were just puppets, then God could not reward us or punish us. There couldn't be any paradise or hell. So it's very important for these things and for the moral fabric of Christianity, that we are free. But then, if we want to have freedom, we need to accept that there will be some bad people, because they are free, right? So God cannot force them all to be good. If God forced them all to be good, it would be pointless to be good. So we need murderers, we need thieves, we need all these bad, we need liars, we need all these people who make bad choices, because this is the consequence of our freedom. And again, this moral evil is necessary for us to be free. And so this is why Leibniz in the end concludes that our world is the best possible world. It's the best possible, not because it's full of happiness and joy and so on. It's the best possible because God tries, within the constraints of these necessary evils, to create a world that is still the best possible. And this is it, where there is enough pain to help us survive. There are enough criminals to make sure that we are free to choose crime if we want to, and where it's valuable not to choose crime. There is enough night for day to be valuable. There's enough snow for sunshine to be valuable. And all these things are balanced against each other in a way that creates a working universe, right? That does not immediately collapse, but keeps going for 13.7 billion years or however long it is. And this is, under these constraints, the best world that God has created. And we live in it. So Leibniz is not Spinoza. The world is not God. The world is created by God, and it is an imperfect world that was created, and because it's imperfect, necessarily it contains suffering and pain and imperfections. And also remember that everything is pre-programmed by God. It's a pre-established harmony. And if you're unsure about that, go to the previous video where it's explained. We live in a pre-established harmony. We have no choice. We are not free. We have to do what God says. But this pre-established harmony has to work forever. It's very difficult to pre-program a system that will work forever without needing any repairs or any involvement, by God later to fix problems. God is not fixing anything. God created the universe from the beginning, and he could know that at this moment I would be recording this video. And he made me press the right buttons on this camera, and he made it so that this camera has the buttons that I'm trying to press. Although my monad doesn't have windows, right? I don't actually see any camera or any buttons. I'm just pressing blindly, but they're all there. And all this God has pre-programmed, and the same for every one of your actions. And perhaps you could argue that there was only one way of doing it. If the slightest thing changed in the universe, then this whole pre-established harmony would fall apart. The universe just would not work. So we don't know if this is the case, only God knows, but perhaps this is the only world that could be constructed under these constraints that would work for as long as God wants it to work, in the way that God wants it to work. So Leibniz's solution for the problem of Theodicy, why is there evil in the world? It's in this work called Theodicy from 1710. He says God is perfect, God created the world, he could have created another world or no world at all, but God, being perfect, knew which world was best, and he created the best one. And he also knew that this world would be better than no world at all. And therefore, the world we live in is the best possible world. And so, based on the belief statements that God exists, God is all-powerful, God is all-good, we necessarily come to the conclusion that this has to be the best possible world. And if we don't see that, it's because we don't understand God's plan. First, we don't understand that some evils are necessary, and in order to have a world that is good and that works, we need those necessary evils. And on the other hand, we cannot understand the whole plan of God for this world. We can never see the whole universe from the outside. We only see our monads, only see everything from their perspective. So we have no way of judging the goodness of the world the way God does. And so we have to trust in God. We have to believe that God actually created the best of all possible worlds. And he had to do it because he is all good, right? He could not create a world that is not the best possible. So as a consequence of this, we can trust that this is the best of all possible worlds. And this is all I wanted to say about Leibniz. There are always more details, there's endless detail in all these works. There are always concepts we have not talked about. But I think, again, this gives you a pretty solid idea of what Leibniz wanted, and enough anyway to continue with our survey of early modern philosophy. And next, we come to a really important thinker, Locke, who is the first of the empiricists. And the video on Locke is here, wherever. Click on it and let us continue with this fascinating survey of early modern philosophy. See you over there. Bye-bye.